There's a new street fighter on your windowsill. The weapon is peace, the word is chill.
Hello Marvel Legends and welcome to another episode of Displaying Model Behaviour. And look, I've got the old setup back now with the desk and the figures. Why am I going to such great lengths to make this a special video? Well, I'll tell you why. Because some people have gone to some exceptional lengths just to put a smile on my face. So this video is in celebration of two absolutely amazing creative artists. First of all, I want to show off from my buddy Phil on Instagram, whose details I'll put below to go and follow because he is a badass artist, made this stunning, absolutely stunning picture of my favorite Marvel character of all time, beyond Spider-Man himself, Kaine Parker, the failed, twisted clone of Peter Parker. Thank you so much. I'm so made up by this. I love it. This is amazing. Going straight up on the wall. I've kept a blank space in preparation for this to arrive, and now that it has, oh my goodness, oh me meow. This is amazing. He just said, you know, who's your favorite character? I'll do a picture of them. Well, you killed it, knocked it out of the park. Phil, thank you so much, man. I am massively in your debt. I love it. Biggest smile on my face. And that brings me to this review. And this review is of my one and only custom Marvel Legend. Of course, it is Kaine Parker himself. The failed first clone of Peter Parker. Oh my goodness. Why do I love this figure so much? Why do I love this character so much? Well, get comfortable because I'm going to tell you the story, all right? I'm going to tell you the story of Kaine Parker. And this is one that goes straight back to 1995 when I first started reading Amazing Spider-Man. I was a fan of the cartoon in the 90s, as so many of us were. I saw the cartoon, loved the character, loved the stories, and I was like, I got to get into reading comics. And of course, 1995 is slap bang in the middle of, I guess in the middle of the Clone Saga, the middle of the start of the Clone Saga. And my first issue is Amazing Spider-Man 401 that ends with 3 Peter Parkers standing face to face, each one of them thinking they're the legit one. And this guy, Kaine, in the background, just being a menacing badass. And now we know in comics, we know that Kaine is the original clone of Spider-Man, but at the time we didn't. We just know that he was this shadowy figure that's kind of beating these different people to a pulp. The Marvel Comics gave Kaine what I would call the Brock Lesnar push. It was have the Grim Hunter job him out, or he jobbed out the Grim Hunter, to use the wrestling. Hey, Mum. No, don't worry, it's fine. I'll pause and re-go. Sorry guys, speaking of doing the perfect review, I just had a visitor in my room, so I needed to do a little cut there, and now I've got to figure out, where was I? The Brock Lesnar push. That's right, I was talking about how Marvel gave Kaine the Brock Lesnar push. So he first appears in this guise, you can't tell who he is or what he is, and he has a run-in with the Grim Hunter, the son of Kraven the Hunter, and bam! Like, one-page fight, snaps his neck and gives him the mark of Kaine, which is this handprint he burns into his face. One dude, dead. But that's not enough, because the Grim Hunter, he'd only recently been introduced. He was just the son of Kraven. He was a copy. Ironically, he was a copy. So it wasn't a big deal to job him out and have him get killed to establish Kaine as a badass. But the next one, you're going to have to take a cup of coffee for, because Dr. Octopus, Spider-Man's arguably longest standing, most iconic villain, dead. Snapped his neck. Kaine just showed up. Oh, for goodness sakes. Come on, Ben, help me out here. Kaine just shows up and kills Dr. Octopus. And it wasn't even like he snuck up on him. He just straight up, Doc Ock handed himself over to the police at the end of one story. He's being transported to the police station. Kaine just rips the doors off the van. Doc Ock comes out fighting. They exchange a couple of blows and Kaine snaps his neck and burns the mark of Kaine on his face. And it's like, whoa, Okay, we've established how big of a badass this guy is, and it's ultimately revealed that Kaine, of course, is the first failed clone of Peter Parker. The reason he's been happy to take out these villains is because he wants Peter Parker to be happy and alive and not threatened. And it's like, this is interesting. Why does the clone want the original to be happy? Like, what's going on here? And ultimately, of course, it's revealed that our Peter Parker is the clone. And Kaine, rather than being jealous of the successful clone, he wants to actually have that clone have the life that he never could. He wants that clone to be married and happy and successful. So because of that, he's taking out all the threats to Peter Parker, which includes in his mind Ben Reilly, because he sees Ben Reilly, who he thinks is the real Peter Parker, as a threat to the clone Peter Parker, which is why when Ben Reilly went into exile, Kaine decided to make his life as miserable as he could to try and force him to stay away from New York, away from Peter Parker, and not destroy his life. It's so confusing when you think that actually he had it wrong the whole time and Ben was the clone, but that's another story for another time. But that's where Kaine gets so complex in his storyline. There's the whole Ben Reilly, The Lost Years, which chronicles the 5 years that Ben was away from New York. And Kaine is in what I would call his Rob Zombie phase, where it's all long matted hair, sunglasses, and a big beard. And he's working as a hitman, an assassin, while also just making Ben's life miserable. And it's such a complex story because he's trying to do good, but at the same time, he has this clone degeneration, which is just destroying his body, and of course with it, his mind. And that's Marvel's kind of get out of jail free clause when it comes to any morality that Kaine might have a trouble with, because he straight up murdered people. But they can say that, oh, he only did that because his mind was literally melting. His brain was degenerating, so he wasn't in his right state of mind, so it's okay for Kaine to have committed some grisly murders, one of which was actually his girlfriend, Louise Kennedy, who was a police detective in Salt Lake City, which was one of the places he was hounding poor old Ben Reilly. He thought that he had found love and redemption with this woman, and then eventually it turns out that she was working for the mob and betrayed him, and he was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to murder you now. So he killed her and again burned the mark of Kaine into her face. And in his mind, this was okay because his palm print was the same as Ben Reilly's. And that was going to result in Ben Reilly being arrested, thus taking him off the board and leaving Peter Parker to have his happy life. Unfortunately, the other person who has the same fingerprints as Kaine and Ben Reilly is Peter Parker. So guess who gets arrested for Kaine's murders? Yeah, not a great plan.
Not a great plan.
No, but what happens is, of course, Peter gets arrested, Ben comes and takes his place in prison, Kaine's trying to kill Ben, the Jackal comes out of his pod where he's been regenerating since his first appearance. It's a whole thing, which eventually ends with Kaine getting stabbed through the chest by the fourth Parker brother, Spider-Side, a character who I've always been a fan of despite being widely derided as a terrible character. But I had a custom made of him and it looked beautiful, but it got lost in the mail and it never made it to me, and that's just heartbreaking, but it is what it is. So Kaine was killed, but the Jackal, not really taking pity on him, but maybe just thinking that he'd be some useful genetic material for later, puts him in a pod in which he regenerates and eventually escapes. Now, I could go on so much further with the story of Kaine, but it's already been 10 minutes almost. We haven't even touched on the Scarlet Spider, the second part of his life and his career. I could do a full Kaine historical retrospective, because after the initial Clone Saga, he disappears off the map. He's in the worst place a character can be, which is Marvel Limbo. He goes off to Europe to try and find Peter and Mary Jane's baby that was kidnapped by Norman Osborn, and just like the baby, just forgotten. And being a huge Kaine fan, I was like, that really sucks. I guess we're just never going to see him again. And he did pop up in just like some background splash pages. I think maybe in the new Avengers, when they had the breakout from the vault, he's seen sort of like just like a little face in the background, but it's like, is that Kaine or is that just some random scarred up dude? You don't know, and that's so frustrating for a Kaine fan. But eventually he was brought back, not in this awesome costume. We got like the Rob Zombie Kaine again, who then becomes like, he gets into a vat of sort of cure, which sort of cures him and shrinks him back down to Peter Parker size. I didn't like that. I like the big, tough, heavy duty, badass Kaine as opposed to just a copy of Peter Parker. But again, I'm getting off on Divergence because that's another story for another time. And if you want to hear it, let me know and I'll give you that story. But yeah, let's talk about this beautiful figure. Oh my goodness. Finally, 10 minutes in. And that was a quick, abridged recap of Kaine's history. So this figure, custom made, just like Ric Flair's suits. Everything is custom made, baby, by the amazing, God, I've gone this far, I haven't even said the name of the creator. Stepan. Oh my goodness. VA Collector on Instagram. Go and check out his stuff. He made this beautiful custom Kaine for me. The body is the Odin Son Thor body. I think the arms are from Tombstone, and I'm pretty sure that's about it. The rest is pure sculpting and blue stuff or green stuff from him. It's amazing. Some could argue that Odin's son is a little bit too big of a buck for Kaine, but I want Kaine to be this bigger bruiser character. Originally, the creator suggested that I use either the Spider UK body or the Tombstone body, which is only slightly bigger than Peter Parker, but nah. I wanted Kaine to be a beast. Because let's face it, in the initial Clone Saga, Kaine, if you're gonna handily murder Dr. Octopus, you've got to be a heavy hitter. Plus, there was a storyline called The Mark of Kaine where Kaine kidnaps Mary Jane because he's got a spider sense that is enhanced. His clone degeneration actually causes his spider powers to become more enhanced, which is why he's so big and strong. And the Mark of Kaine is an offshoot of the wall crawling abilities. Rather than just sticking, his hand can actually become hot and fiery and will burn into someone's skin. Similarly, rather than having spider sense, he has a precognitive sense. So rather than just immediate danger, he can literally get flashes of the future, and he saw someone murdering Mary Jane. So to protect her, he kidnaps her, thus leading to Peter and Ben coming to the rescue, along with the fourth Parker brother, Spider-Side, who hadn't been revealed as being a psychotic monster at this point. But at the end of that story, it's Kaine versus Spider-Side, Peter, and the Scarlet Spider, and he holds his own against all three of them, which is pretty nuts. So it makes sense that you're looking at an Odin's son sort of figure type here. But here we go. I love having these three together. God, I wish I had my Spider-Side to make the four, but such is life, c'est la vie. But that's why I went for the Odin Son body. I thought it was actually a more appropriate kind of size for such a big, badass character, which is why there was a big plot hole where Kaine needs to impersonate Peter Parker at the end of the Grim Hunt storyline because Kraven's family want to murder Spider-Man as a sacrifice to bring Kraven back. So Kaine dresses up as Peter Parker and is killed in his place. But it's like, there's no way the 6'5" or 6'6" Kaine is gonna be mistaken for Peter Parker, no matter what spider suit he's wearing. There was actually a story during the Clone Saga where Kaine dresses up in Spider-Man's outfit, and you could see, like, obviously it's Kaine. He's this giant hulking brute with the spider suit kind of stretched over him. It doesn't work. So that was some creative license by the authors there, which I wasn't a fan of. But anyway, this costume here, this is actually, there's a reason for the costume looking the way it does. This is actually a suit that he wears that slows down his physical degeneration. I don't think it was ever stated where he got it from. I mean, he still has Peter Parker's mind, so he is a scientist. And it's pretty much established that Peter is a genius at what he chooses his field to be. So Peter chose to go into kind of like, inventing, such as web shooters and the webware type stuff in later issues. But if he chose to go into genetics, biology, he probably would have had the same aptitude for it. So you can imagine, headcanon, that Kaine had been looking into biology, genetics, and a cure for his, affliction. So I imagine that he created this suit, and I picture in my head that this is an organic suit, almost like a symbiote, but not self-aware or anything, but it's made of an organic material. And that's why all the silver lines on here mirror clone degeneration. Clones degenerate by having these gray sort of veins appear on them. So what I kind of imagine is that the suit is initially this beautiful kind of teal, shiny blue color. And then when he puts it on, it kind of adheres to his body, and you can see the degeneration kind of like showing through, but it's kind of pumping nutrients into his body to counteract it. Headcanon. Why does he wear the little purple cape? Well, because he's a fashionista as well. There's no practical reason for that. But everything that he has been captured in this figure beautifully. I mean, just take a look. First of all, one thing that a lot of artists who draw Kaine are actually quite lazy about is the pattern of the degeneration on his suit. It actually isn't just a bunch of random silver lines. You can see he has the points that sort of go down towards his lower abs. Those, like by canon, should be there in all designs. They're there. Similarly, he has what looks almost like ribs along the side that contour to his skeleton. That's what's always there. And the lines that go underneath his pectoral muscles, those are always there if he's drawn correctly. There are some terrible renditions of Kaine where the artist has just drawn random squiggles on him, and it's like, stop getting Kaine wrong! Also, he has, of course, the spikes on his forearms and his legs as well, which I'm just imagining because of his unique kind of degeneration. Those are actual like bone protrusions that are starting to form, which also makes sense with the way that he evolves with the powers of the other, and he gets the wrist spikes that come through. So this is probably a degenerated version of what that should have been. A little bit of headcanon. And finally, the one thing that most artists forget to do, but I was like, when you're making this figure, make sure you include this. He actually has fashioned his own spikes, his wrist spike gauntlet here, which is really cool. And again, a lot of people forget about. He only uses it like a couple of times in the comics, and then it's forgotten about. But it adds a great sort of dimension to his costume. It breaks it up, makes it so that it's not just blue with silver squiggles. So what this is like, I think it's referred to as like a spider bite or something. There's two little fang type blades that come out of here. And I think it does like inject a poison or something. Again, he uses it like once, but still, it's the fact that it's this cool little gauntlet, and it has this sort of thread that wraps around and up his arm. It's a really nice little touch that just works so well. The cape for this figure, of course, is made from the Odin Son cape as well. But of course, the creator was, not just going to sit idly by with that. He's added a whole lot more material to it to make it longer and more flowing. And of course, Kaine has the spike on his shoulder as well, which you can just imagine is protruding up through the cape there too. It's just the amount of detail that's gone into the holes and everything in there is just beautiful. So much work, so much love has gone into this. It's just absolutely fantastic. So let's put together a little Kaine display here. So we got Kaine front and center, of course, but then we want to make our Mark of Kaine display here. So that is Kaine, the Scarlet Spider, and Peter Parker. Kaine finally has his big face reveal at the end of the trial of Peter Parker, because Peter's going to go down for murder. Well, actually, Ben is going to go down for murder in Peter's place, and Peter is saying to Kaine, like, either you confess to these murders, or I'm just going to walk into the courtroom, unmask, and be like, this is what's up. And Kaine is so desperate for Peter to not ruin his life that he eventually just says, like, fine, look, take off the mask. I'm your messed up clone, all right? I did it. And he walks in, he puts his mask back on, but then walks into the court and is like, it was me, burns his hand into the desk. He's like, check the fingerprints. This is what it is. Which, of course, eventually he would have then been revealed by the police that he is a clone of Peter Parker, thus opening up that can of worms regardless. But I think in the back of his mind, he knew, like, nah, mate, I'm going to escape long before you take my mask off. It was a bit of a Bane thing, It's like, it would be extremely painful for you. And it was. Again, Kaine's just a badass. What are you going to do about it? So we have the 4. There we go. We have the 4 members of the Mark of Kaine story. And finally, when Ben Reilly does take over as Peter Parker, Kaine is still choosing to hound him, but eventually he comes to his senses in a storyline called The Redemption, and he realizes that he's essentially been wasting his life trying to make Ben's miserable. So he turns himself into the police. He's like, I committed these murders, I'm a bad guy, take me in. So it wasn't until the Parker baby was kidnapped by Norman Osborn that he breaks out of prison, because he's like, Norman Osborn's alive? That's something I have a bit of a problem with, that Kaine, with his kind of badass personality, he shouldn't be okay with Norman Osborn just walking around. He's only had I can't even think of an interaction with Kaine and Norman Osborn since Osborn came back, and it's like, nah, mate, you still have the memories of everything he's done to Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy in your entire life. So Kaine, Scarlet Spider now, as we have Scarlet Spider here, he should be looking for some kind of revenge against Norman Osborn that I'm surprised he hasn't got yet. So of course, this is the Scarlet Spider that we know now. This is the Kaine that we're all familiar with. So this is the stealth suit he took from Peter Parker. And of course, he is now Peter Parker's size or slightly taller, because he took a bath in some toxins and stuff that cured him of his degeneration and sort of shrunk him back down to size. And the spikes are from the power of the Other, this spider god, because he was murdered by the Craven family, but that was when the Other took him over and gave him all sorts of different powers. But that's another review for another time. I'm throwing the Rhino into this display as well, because that was another example of Marvel wanting to show how powerful Kaine was that they did have a confrontation where essentially Kaine just beat the piss out of the Rhino. That was kind of a cool moment. Because again, the Rhino is kind of a jobber, but he's only a jobber to heavy hitter guys, you know. So someone like the Hulk can job out the Rhino, but someone like Spider-Man should, by proxy, have a hard time going toe to toe. Whereas Kaine was like, nah, I ain't got time for this. So there you go. That is our awesome looking. Oh, I love this so much. This is my awesome looking Kaine display. One day, maybe Spider-Side might turn up. He's somewhere between the Czech Republic and the UK. God only knows where. He's being tracked, but he's currently just sitting in Czech Republic somewhere. That was the last time he was ever seen. So kind of like Kaine in the early 2000s, he's in limbo. But for what I have here, oh my God. It goes without saying. Mwah! Chef's kiss. I adore this figure. I adore this custom. I adore this character. I adore the artwork that I now have celebrating him. This is just the best. I am so happy. Stepan, I got this about a year ago, but still, all the kudos and love in the world. I adore this figure. Phil, you absolutely killed it. I think this is just absolutely wicked. I'm going to put this right up here, pride of place on the display. Guys, thank you so much. I'm just happy as a clam with all of this. I don't know why I put off doing this review, because I'm on such a high from talking about this character. I hope I wasn't shouting too much. I probably was. But guys, thank you so much. Have you read the Clone Saga? Do you remember it fondly? Because I know I certainly do. Comment below, let me know. And also, what is your favorite obscure character? Because as much as I love Kaine, he is an obscure character, but he's so cool. So who is an obscure character that you would love to see Marvel Legends make that they haven't made yet? Comment below and let me know. And guys, that's it for this epic, overly excited review. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you want to support the channel, then you can go over to patreon.com/displaying model behavior, throw a few shekels my way. And if you just want to see more of this, then you can click the like, share, and subscribe buttons, thus joining the 6-1 clicks. And finally, to get my last plug out of the way, I am establishing a sister channel, Displaying Miscellaneous Behavior, where I cover anything that's not action figure related. So video games, wrestling, comic books, movies. So if you want to see more of my crazy, excited ranting, then you can click the link in the description below and go join Displaying Miscellaneous Behavior. And until next time, folks, I can't believe that I'm just exhausted from all of this. So until next time, keep displaying model behavior.